Okay, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. My name's Lydia Ruddy. I'm the Director of Communications for ERIA, and I will be the MC today. I'd like to thank all of you for attending. We have people from all over the world. And I'd like to thank the team at the ASEAN Secretariat for their partnership in putting this event together. Today's program is quite brief and therefore relatively fast-paced. We will try to stay within the 1 hour, but the Q&A session may run over a bit. We completely understand if you have to leave. One housekeeping item, feel free to raise questions at any point using the chat box. We will do our best to answer as many of the questions as we can during the Q&A session. In the meantime, it's my great honor and pleasure to introduce the first speaker of the day, His Excellency, Mr. Kung Phoak, Deputy Secretary General of the ASEAN Socio-Cultural Community, to deliver his welcoming remarks. Your Excellency, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Lydia, and a pleasant morning to everyone. It is my great pleasure to be with you today on this webinar to discuss fake news and ways to tackling disinformation in ASEAN. As we enter into the new year and continue to battle the onset of COVID-19 and its impact, we have also been taking on the fight against another challenge at hand. The battle against this infodemic, or the rise of fake news, has been driven by the growth of digital dependencies in recent years, and the pivot toward digital adoption has further accelerated during the COVID-19 period when social distancing measure led to greater internet usage and time spent online. Prior to the pandemic, around 66% or 439 million ASEAN citizens embraced the digital life. The digital adoption by ASEAN people grew further during the pandemic, with at least 40 million more becoming new internet users in 2020 alone. Further research reveals that ASEAN citizens have spent an average of 1 hour more online during the lockdown. This pattern of internet dependency is likely to continue post-pandemic. While technological adoption and digital engagement are helpful for us all in readily obtaining information, they also open the gates to the influx of disinformation that could spread as rapidly as the pandemic itself. For example, fake news, spanning claims, preventive remedies, and bogus cures to COVID-19 downplay the risk of the pandemic. Lately, there are also unsubstantiated claims that COVID-19 vaccine could cause infertilities or alter a person's DNA. If left unchecked, this disinformation can create a climate of distrust, intolerance, fear, and discriminations. These white noises of untruths hamper the real efforts of reaching out to people with reliable and timely information, undermine effective preparedness and resiliencies and responsiveness of governments, organizations, and individuals to respond to fear and fake news properly. Again, this backdrop is crucial, to equip ASEAN citizens with the ability to discern facts from falsehood. ASEAN has been taking steps to address the challenges of fake news in the region. During the 31st ASEAN Summit on 13 November 2017, ASEAN leaders adopted the ASEAN Declarations of Culture Preventions for a peaceful, inclusive, resilient, healthy, and harmonious society, which calls for concerted action to promote a culture and supporting the values of moderation against deliberate falsehood. While punitive downstream measures, including jail terms and fines meted out to those who spread fake news, may be effective, it is important that we advocate upstream preventive measures such as raising media literacy so as to nurture digitally responsible citizens. The ASEAN information sector has been steadfastly spearheading several important initiatives to address the harmful effects of fake news. This includes a roundtable discussions on fake news and communicating the right information convened by the ASEAN Ministers Responsible for Information in 2017 under the chairmanship of the Philippines. Further on, under Singapore chairmanship in 2018, AMRI adopted the framework and joint declaration to minimize the harmful effects of fake news and the core values on digital literacy for ASEAN. The core values constituting of ready, responsibility, empathy, authenticity, discernment, and integrity aim to create a safe and conducive online environment while also respecting the freedom of expression. Most recently in 2020, under the chairmanship of Thailand, the AMRI has adopted the joint statement to minimize the negative effects of COVID-19 that stresses the important role of the media and information sectors to enhance effective public communication, counter fake news and misinformation, and support the free flow of accurate and timely information during the pandemic. Today, we have the privilege to hear from various speakers, including Rappler and ByteDance, who will share with us their insight and thoughts in addressing the proliferation of fake news and ways to mitigate its harmful effects. Among today's speakers is also our ASEAN colleague, Mr. Trieu Minh Long, Director General from the Vietnam Ministry of Information and Communication, who is the Vice Chair for the ASEAN Senior Official responsible for information summary, where Vietnam hosted a special online workshop on fake news, to which ASEAN officials further discussed ways to tackle fake news in July last year. Today's webinar with the Economic Research Institute for ASEAN and East Asia is part of the ASEAN ongoing commitment to deliver safer online space to ASEAN citizens and to promote digital literacy. With participation from diverse stakeholders, I hope the webinar will bring about a holistic overview and understanding of the region's situation on disinformation in ASEAN, as well as public concerns, which will serve as a basis for more targeted intervention in the future. Facilitating timely flow of reliable information and developing digitally responsible netizens are key to safeguarding us from the harmful effects of disinformation. And to be able to deliver this to our citizens, a strong partnership of all stakeholders is required. I encourage today's discussion to identify opportunity for collaboration and come up with recommendations that will help ASEAN build back better to a more resilient, inclusive, and sustainable region. As we foster, we care, prepare, we prosper mindset as outlined under Brunei Darussalam Chairmanship of ASEAN this year. Once again, thank you very much, and I wish everyone a fruitful discussion this morning.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. You've set the stage for an outstanding conversation today. And now it's my honor to introduce the COO of ERIA, Mr. Koji Hachiyama, to deliver his welcoming remarks. Hachiyama-san, over to you.
Thank you, Lydia. And I'd like to wish everyone a good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. And thank you for attending today's event. This is the second ASEAN On Point event hosted by ERIA in partnership with ASEAN Secretariat. We create these forums to address policy issues that are important to ASEAN as a whole. Fake news definitely falls into the category. And the timing for this event is incredible. Over the past week, the world has witnessed the attack of the US Congress, spurred on by radical opinions shared widely on social media, sometimes as a result of hacking. Twitter, Facebook, and a host of other platforms have taken the extraordinary measures of banning a President of the United States from using their services. The Washington Post reports that online misinformation has dropped a dramatic 73% since Trump's account was suspended. All of this raises a host of critical policy issues about the role of government in the regulating misinformation and fake news. How far can these regulations go when balanced against free speech? How much weight is to be given to privacy rights? What is the responsibility of the social media platforms themselves? Similarly, what is the role of traditional media? What can be done to support our populations so that they can be disconcerting consumers of media and information? Is it an issue of education, fact-checking, or something else? We have brought together a group of experts from across ASEAN representing social media platforms, government, and traditional media to examine these issues with particular focus on what policymakers in ASEAN need to consider when addressing fake news. In a few hours, the new president of United States will be sworn in amidst perhaps the highest level of security ever. ASEAN needs to understand the US situation as a warning. I hope that today's discussion will provide some critical insights for our leaders. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hachiyama-san. You've highlighted many of the key issues for today's discussions. Moving right along, it's my pleasure to introduce today's moderator, Mr. Kavi Chongkitavorn. Kavi is a veteran journalist with in-depth understanding of regional issues, and ERIA is lucky to have him as our senior communications advisor. Kavi?
Good days, everyone. Thank you, Lydia. I'd like to dig into the discussion. I think the DSG Kongpok has set the stage, identifying what ASEAN has done. You know, today we faced two deadly viruses. The first one is coronavirus. Luckily, we have the vaccine, we have the cure, but the second deadly virus of disinformation and fake news, we still don't have the cure. And hopefully, today's discussions will come out with a very good recommendations and good practice that we can share. We are fortunate to have representative from private sector, from media, and also from government. So we are very happy. And I think over session 40 to 45 minutes, each of you will have 5 to 6 minutes to give your key points, and then we will leave it to the questions and answer. Some of the questions that I think beyond what DSG Kongpok has outlined, I think I just like to mention a few. One of the key issues is how we can balance the efforts to fight against disinformation and fake news with freedom of expression. One of the biggest issues today is that, as you know, former President Trump has been banned from using social platform services. And another key issue is also about the responsibility. Who will be taking care? Who has the right to determine to speak, or banning speaker the right to speak? And I think these are also one of the key issues we have to tackle. And then what kind of frameworks that we need in ASEAN to deal with fake news? Endless question. So I would like to start with Marites Vito. She's a well-known investigative journalist. There is no need to introduction. The second speaker from Indonesia, Pak Doni Erastra, is from the Biden's TikTok public policy chief covering Indonesia, Philippines, and Malaysia. And the last one's from Vietnam. Vietnam is the previous chair playing a very important role, Mr. Thiao Min Long. He's the director of International Cooperation Ministry of Information and Communications. Marites, you have the floor.
Thank you, Kavi. Can you hear me well? So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. First, let me just give a bit of context on the Philippines, because in the online world, the Philippines is #1. Filipinos have the highest daily internet usage globally. As of January 2020, Filipinos spent an average of 9 hours, 45 minutes online per day. We are #1 also in Southeast Asia. Thailand followed with 9 hours, 1 minute, Indonesia 7 hours, 59 minutes, and Malaysia 7 hours, 57 minutes. And social media users in the Philippines are the most active, averaging 3 hours, 53 minutes a day. And close behind is Indonesia at 3 hours, 26 minutes. These are way above the global average of 2 hours, 44 minutes. And these figures increased globally during the pandemic. So this backdrop of connectedness makes the Philippines a fertile place for disinformation. So let me just touch a bit on definitions. Disinformation is deliberate, often orchestrated attempt to confuse or manipulate people through dishonest information. On the other hand, misinformation is misleading information created or disseminated without malicious intent to manipulate. It is therefore disinformation that we have to guard against. And this information happens all the time, but we notice that during elections and crisis, we see a surge of disinformation. This was already mentioned earlier by the DG. So let me talk first about the coronavirus crisis in the Philippines. It was common to come across fake news, mostly on cures for the virus. And then also government responses and programs were subjects of fake news. And there were specific information to sow fear and discrimination, as well as disinformation on opposition politicians. These were the patterns in the Philippines. So most of the disinformation had to do with cures for the virus. And those who were disseminating this used quote cards to make them look authentic. As I said earlier, opposition politicians were victimized by fake news, and the President of the Philippines and his health secretary were early sources of false information on the virus. And now, recently, this information has been happening on messaging apps like Messenger, Telegram, WhatsApp, and Viber. Now, let me just go a bit more on elections and disinformation. During election campaigns, disinformation has become increasingly well-funded, sophisticated, and harder to detect. In the Philippines and other countries, this has figured prominently in recent elections, resulting in decline of civil discourse and a highly polarized society. And this information has also been weaponized to target political opponents or dampen political support for the opposition. In the 2019 elections in the Philippines, a multi-sectoral fact-checking group composed of universities, media organizations did a study that showed that the main source of disinformation and misinformation during and after the elections was social media, followed by candidates and other public figures. And the most targeted during the 2019 elections was the opposition senatorial slate and allies. And as I mentioned earlier, a recent development has been the proliferation of disinformation in chat groups, which is more difficult to monitor because these are private groups. Now, the big question, how do we fight fake news? I'm sure this is happening across Southeast Asia, but let me just go briefly through each of these. Fact-checking, we work with academe, citizens, and professional groups. In the Philippines, it's Rappler and Verifiles have partnered with Facebook to conduct vigorous fact-checking and to flag fake news. There's also a citizens fact-checking group active on social media. Number two, as mentioned earlier by the DG, we also conduct digital and media literacy campaigns for the public, from students to policymakers, politicians, government officials, and we spread the word on how to identify disinformation and stop it. This is being done by journalists, NGOs, and universities in the Philippines. So what are the key messages we bring to our readers, viewers, and audiences? We always stress, know the facts, do this by reading, trust primary sources, take a deep breath before sharing, think, and also ask the fact checkers. And in messaging apps, which is again more difficult to monitor, we tell our readers, our listeners to beware of fake logos, those too good to be true videos and messages that encourage you to share this information. And this is important. We need to report websites and other sources of false or hateful content to site administrators so that authorities can take action. Let me just give you a concrete example of how media reporting on fake news can lead to the takedown of accounts and pages that share disinformation. In August last year, Rappler reported extensively on disinformation by the police, specifically in labeling critics of government as communists, or what we call red tagging them. So Rappler the research team of Rappler tracked the police pages and accounts on social media which habitually shared content from dubious pages known for their lies and for red tagging people. Those who were red tagged, these individuals and groups, were put in harm's way. They became vulnerable to trolling and they could be targets of extrajudicial killing. So it's very dangerous. So this report was one of the sources or leads used by Facebook in taking down close to 90 accounts and pages on Facebook in September last year. Of course, Facebook did its own thorough investigation. But this shows how media organizations can help fight disinformation by documenting the pattern of spreading fake news. And Facebook has openly said that these accounts violated their policy against what they call coordinated inauthentic behavior, meaning people behind this activity coordinate with one another and use fake accounts to mislead people. So Facebook said they focus on behavior rather than on content. So with this guidepost, it's very helpful for media organizations, academics, and NGOs to document this information. And on this note, I will end my talk and thank you for listening.
Well, thank you very much, Marites. You have given us a very broad view of the challenges that media practitioner and the public in ASEAN have to face. I think you have identified a key issue in selecting the right information, how to locate, verify information, evaluating effective information, and how to use it. And I think we probably, toward the end, we have to discuss how to leverage on all this useful information as the Marites has outlined. I'd like to go to the second speaker, Pak Donnie from ByteDance, from content provider TikTok. The floor is yours, Pak Donnie.
Thank you, Kavi. A very good morning or afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you to ASEAN Secretariat and also ERIA for organizing this very interesting forum. And yeah, I'd like to begin by highlighting our stance from TikTok that we don't allow misinformation or disinformation that causes harm to individuals, our user community, or even the larger public in general. So this includes medical misinformation, misinformation about election, or any other form of dangerous misinformation. So I think this is should be very clear that as a platform, we also want people to be safe and receive accurate information when they're using our platform. So just want to set that out in the beginning. Now, we see that the role of platform is twofold, right? So first, we are aware of the harm that can be caused by misinformation. Therefore, we put in safeguards in place. And the second is, which equally as important, is on educating the users or the public in general. So this is in terms of increasing the digital literacy efforts so that users will be able to separate the true information from misinformation. So all of the things that we have done on this in this endeavor revolves around these two activities. Now, on safeguarding our platform itself, we basically we base our activities on a set of rules that we call community guidelines. So this sets out what type of content is allowed and not allowed on TikTok. So it's very clear that not everything is allowed, including content that are vulgar, that has elements of hate speech, for example, or even misinformation. And how do we enforce this is by having first a technology that is able to read videos when they're uploaded, and when they contain certain elements that are not allowed, they would not be able to be uploaded at the first place. The second layer of enforcement is through our team of moderators. So we have team of moderators who work 24/7. They are based on each of the countries. They understand the local language and the local norms, so they are able to proactively and reactively, monitor content and remove the ones that are not in accordance to our guideline. So those are basically what we do to look after the content on our platform in general. Now, specifically on misinformation, there are numerous efforts that we also have done from TikTok side. I think one of the most important thing that I also want to highlight is we recognize the challenge. I think Maritas also said it out in the beginning, that it's actually quite challenging to separate the true information from misinformation. And this is why we also rely a lot on external experts. So one of the efforts that we do is we work with fact checkers. So these are external independent organizations who look into dubious content, and they would be able to label them or recommend action, whether we should keep them on our platform or we remove them. In Southeast Asia, we work with AFP and also Lead Stories. These are some of our early fact-checking partners, and we are looking to partner with more organizations in the future. Now, the other thing that we have in terms of external partnership is we recently launched what we call as TikTok Asia Pacific Safety Advisory Council. So this is basically a council that brings together thought leaders from academia, law and government from various sectors, from various countries in Asia Pacific. So they could provide inputs to TikTok's policy and enforcement. Now, from representing Southeast Asia in this council, we have from Indonesia, Ms. Anita Wahid, from Gus Durian Network, and also the president of Mafindo, or Indonesia Anti-Hoax Society. And also we have actually representative from Vietnam, Ms. Nguyen Phuong Linh, who is the executive director from Management and Sustainable Development Institute, along with their peers from other Asia Pacific countries. So we do work closely with external experts who would be able to provide independent inputs to our policies and procedures. Now, talking about COVID specifically, where we see a different type of misinformation in the past few months, or even close to a year since the pandemic happened, we focus our activities in tackling the misinformation around three fronts. First, we promote authoritative information on our platform. So if you go into the TikTok app, there will be an information hub where we gather info from authorities, including the World Health Organizations, and also at the local level, the health ministries. They provide info on COVID-related info, country-specific statistics, and what should you do to stay safe. So these are, I would say, the flip side of tackling misinfo, right? Which is promoting the authoritative information. Now, the other thing that we do is we also work with external partners and industry experts. So in addition to fact-checking organizations, we work with various industry experts to basically to provide external views and inputs of what are the trends of misinformation and how should we handle them. So that's also the other thing that we do. And the third part is we support our moderation teams. We provide additional training, and we launch a specific medical misinformation policy so that they are able to better do their job in monitoring and enforcing our policies around medical related content. So at the end, I would just conclude by saying this is actually all of our all of us from different sectors. We should play our part. From the platform side, we launch policies and we enforce them. We work together with external partners, and more importantly, we educate our users through various campaigns. But we cannot do it alone. We need to work together. We need to work with government. We need to work with external organizations, NGOs, and the academia in order to create a safe and positive internet environment for everyone. So yeah, we can further discuss in the Q&A session, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Pak Donny. Your articulations have provided a very good understanding of how content provider like ByteDance, COVID disinformation, very, very comprehensive and impressive. By the way, we would like to inform you that we have invited other high-tech company, but somehow they are not available due to some technical problems. Just let you know. I would like to go to our finals panelist, Dr. Jiao Min Long from Vietnam, of Information and Communication. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Kavi. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. First of all, we would like to express our thanks and appreciations to the ASEAN Secretariat and the Economic Research Institute of ASEAN and East Asia, ERIA, for the effort and for the initiative to launch this public forum. This is very important for us to work together and to listen to each other on our approach and how we can work together to deal with these very important issues, which Mr. Kavi has said we can refer it to similar to a kind of pandemic, but unlike COVID-19, the vaccine for this should not be will not be found just in a matter of months or years. Yeah, we have to go. We will have to live with it for many years. For every government, ensuring the healthy and safety environment, cyber environment for the people would be the common concern and the priority for every government. And for ASEAN, for the information we have in ASEAN, we have the Ministers for Information Responsible for Information's meeting, we call AMRI, and the meetings of the Senior Official for Information, we call SOMRI. And for several years now, we are working very closely together to learn and to share our experience and to work together on our joint effort in promoting our cooperation in information sector and including the issues of fake news and information, disinformation. In every ASEAN member states, the government are working very hard to revise our laws and regulations to deal with fake news. Every ASEAN members, by now we already have the related and relevant laws and regulations to deal with fake news on different forms or names, but we all have both the criminal and administrative punishment for fake news, up to the level of the impact or the harm of the news. We are working in ASEAN to implement several projects of focusing on public education and public communication. These are very important for us. At the same time, we, on the one hand, we have to revise and to make our laws and regulations quite relevant and up to date, in line with the development of the issues. And on the other hand, we also need to improve the awareness of the people, enhance the awareness. Actually, many people are unaware of the problems when they share the fake news, and unaware that the action is actually violating the laws and regulations. So media literacy, information literacy will be very important. And in ASEAN, we have 650 million people. Many of them are from the rural area and mountain area, and now thanks to our effort, more than 65 or almost 70% of our population in ASEAN can access to the internet now. But the knowledge and the literacy, digital literacy, and particularly media literacy is still very limited. So the challenge for the government is now is to try to help the people understanding how to share the information, how to detect the fake news, and how to deal with the fake news and privacy issues. In ASEAN, we many countries are launching various kinds of initiative. Some of us have a Center for Anti-Fake News, government centers, so that we can help the people to know where to check the news, whether that is the fake news. So fact checkers, both from the government and the agencies and the other civil organizations, is very important. So we in many ASEAN countries, we have this kind of centers, the anti-fake news centers. We have the hotline so that the government can also help. That's why also the people can also check whether the news that they got is the fake news. That is very important because, you know, with the speed of the network now, one news could be spread quite rapidly to millions of people, and it's really dangerous if it's impactful fake news. In ASEAN, on regional initiative, we are also discussing with our colleagues from ASEAN members to set up the task force, the ASEAN task force, with representative from the governments, the government agencies, with the officer focal point from each member states, so that we can work together to share our our not just only policy, but also our operational issues, our operational experience in dealing with fake news. And we may also cover areas with not just the fake news that impact one individual countries, but the regional fake news that we see. We start to have fake news not only about one particular countries, but fake news on the on ASEAN, on the regional issues, cross-border issues. So with that, also the area we need to work together. And as we have our previous speaker from TikTok, the cooperation between the public and private sector is very important, particularly the government agencies and the media platforms. So we encourage all the media platforms for the sake of the safety of the people and the customers. We need to work very closely together with the government to help first educating our people, join the government in carrying out the education programs, raising the awareness of the people, the users, and we try to have more software, more applications to help detecting the fake news and warning our users before they believe or before they share any information, before they spread in any information, in order not to violate the laws. I think there are a lot that we need to work together, and we can do together, and we look forward to having more close cooperation from media platforms in the next few years. In 2021, Vietnam will join other ASEAN member states to set up the ASEAN Task Force, and we welcome all the media platforms and service providers to join us in this effort. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Jiao, for outlining what government in ASEAN has done. And Vietnam, as the chair, last year has done a pretty good job. Now I would like to go to the session of question and answer. There's a lot of questions. Lydia, you have monitored the question. Could you read out one or two questions?
There are a couple of questions directed at Donnie, so I think I'll start there. How can we monitor if social media networks are really enforcing community guidelines? And in terms of digital media literacy, how can universities help in this regard? So why don't we start with that one?
Thank you. So everyone could play a part in improving the safety of so this also includes users. So when the question asks, how can we support tech platform in monitoring misinformation? So for TikTok, every piece of content, which in our case is in the form of video and text, they can all be reported. And that also includes the every single user profile on TikTok. So all of the accounts on TikTok, all of the videos can be reported. Now, this report, of course, will be verified by our moderation team, whether they really do violate our community guideline. And if they do, we will action them. We will remove them from the platform. So that is one way how the community, how our regular user could play a part in monitoring misinformation on platform. And we also actively seek inputs through our partnership with external experts, including our Safety Advisory Council and also our external fact-checking partners. Now, in terms of partnership with universities, yeah, so we definitely are open for partnership and exchange of ideas. We are starting this already. For example, in Singapore, we work with the Media Literacy Council, and we are definitely exploring to do more in various Southeast Asia countries. So yeah, I think universities play a role when they host experts on on media, on digital literacy. And actually some of our members of our Safety Advisory Council also are coming from the academia. So yeah, we are open for these partnerships and discussion, and we look forward to do more. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Donnie. Lydia, you have the next question, I hope.
Yeah, so I just actually, there was one follow-on, which is, how do the partnerships with media organizations like AFP work for fact-checking of the content on your platform? So if you can just describe a bit more.
Sure. Yeah. So these organization, media organizations such as AFP or the specific fact-checking platforms such as Lead Stories, they already have the resources and the best practice in verifying a piece of content. And they do have these capabilities in multiple languages, where they also have local resources in place. So how do we work with them is our own team of moderators would monitor content, and when there are content that have certain signals of misinformation, we would send them to these partners, and then they would verify whether the content are accurate or misinformation, and we would action them based on this recommendation. We would remove them if they are misinformation. Now, these organizations also provide inputs to our policy, products, and process. So not only verifying specific content items, they also provide inputs on how TikTok can do better in terms of our policy, our guideline, and our process.
Well, thank you, Pat Donnie. The next question is to all panelists. It's come from Bangkok, Thailand. The question is, people tend to believe or hear what they want to believe and hear, no matter what. And she wants to ask your expert opinion how to tackle these problems. This question is for all panelists. Malites, you want to go first, followed by Dr. Jiao, and then Donnie, please.
Yes, oh, that's a very difficult issue, because as you say, you said they believe what they want to believe. Here, I think the universities play a role, because education is vital. I think in the earlier question, in the Philippines, universities work with media organizations in conducting media literacy. We go, my colleagues and civil society groups and universities go around the country to give briefings to students and to teachers. Now, but universities should also do this within their own campuses, to their own students. If there are issues of the day that are raging, for example, on fake cures on the virus, or now on the vaccines, then this can be clarified within the classroom, outside the classroom, in traditional media and social media as well. So I think maybe with a lot of information from authoritative experts and authentic sources, then maybe there will be a portion that will be convinced.
Well, thank you. Very good suggestion, Marites. All these educative measures, I think it's very good, very good. I'd like to proceed to Dr. Jiao.
Yes. As I said earlier, education is vital, not just only in universities and for the young people, even for at school level, even for the children, for the high school. Actually, our children, for the kids, they should be one of the priority target for us, because they can now have access to internet, and many of our children have the account on social media very early, around 10 or 11 years old. So educating them and protecting them from abuse, from fake news will be very important. Of course, I understand that joining with the universities and the youth and young people organization is very important. But not only for the universities, we have to engage all the stakeholders, and I think the children, the schools will be also very important. And we need to develop the materials, the manual more specific to those people, easy to understand, very simple to the kids. That is what I think we need to work together. So, and the media and social media platform, I think they can work with the government in developing these kind of materials, these kind of documents to educate our people, every age, from a very young age. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. But Donnie, you have something to say?
Yeah, just to echo other speakers, education is equally as important. We can provide all of the tools, but again, people can choose to believe what they want to believe. Sometimes it's because they don't know how to differentiate between accurate information and misinformation. Now, from TikTok side, we do these proactive campaigns. That's the strength of our platform. We work together with creators. They create videos, TikTok videos, where they teach, where they share the tips on how to stay safe on the platform. And this is viewed by millions of people. So this is, I think, where our key strength is in, reaching out to our users in a language that they understand. We also do workshops with universities as well. For example, in Indonesia, we go around different universities to share tips on how to stay safe online, how to distinguish between different types of information. We work together with teacher association and also basically various audience. So those are some of the things that we do in terms of educating our users.
Well, thank you, Pak Donnie. Indeed. I think the intensifications between the relation of the creator, like content providers and the publics, I think is very important, and that could be one of the recommendations. Lydia, you have the next question, please.
Sure. Actually, two things. I'd like to also open the floor to the panelists. They can see the questions as well. So I'm going to pose one question, and then after that, if there are any particular questions that the panelists themselves would like to address, please let us know. But this is a question for Mr. True. What is the best practices on fake news control during the pandemic that Vietnam can share to ASEAN?
I think in ASEAN we work very closely and we share a lot of best practice and also the experience in dealing with fake news. But for our case, one of the way that we can help people against the fake news is that we try to provide more information to the people from the government, the official information from the government to the people, to our people, and particularly the leading media agencies, the government agencies. They should be more responsive. When there are hot issues, they need to be more proactive in sharing the information with the people and try to get our people aware of the issues, the hot issues. of course, using technologies is very important now. That because we have to deal with the very rapid spread of the fake news. So we need to engage the tech companies to work with the government so that we can timely detect the news and we have timely response. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the panelists, particularly on the innovative technologies? I think this point had been mentioned by the three panelists, that you have to keep up, update technology to catch up with whoever try to propagate disinformation. Okay, we go to the next questions. This one comes from Walters Baleni. Are we really able to track and punish violators in ASEAN? How do we fare in enforcing anti-disinformation law and regulations? I think Dr. Chiao probably could provide some answer.
Yes, the good news for us is that in almost in every ASEAN member state, we are now having relevant laws and regulations to provide both criminal and administrative punishments to those who violate the laws. But actually, we are still working to revise all these laws and regulations to keep it up to date, in line with the development of the new kind of fake news. But cross-border on a regional scale, we are also working to join our effort in dealing with the regional fake news. So I think that we can deal with that, and of course we need more cooperation and collaboration, particularly from the civil organizations, from the social platforms, and we welcome and we look forward to working with all stakeholders.
Thank you very much. I will move to the next question because our time's almost end, but we will continue about 5 to 7 minutes. These questions come from Maria Arena. How would you classify propaganda from ISIS or terrorists that was coming to the social media and very visible to state universities? I think Marites Vituk, you can take up this question, or Donnie.
Yes, I was answering some of the questions in writing. So anyway, about ISIS, I think it's very clear that when reporting on ISIS, the editors always ask for sources, attribution, double checking of sources. And if it's on social media, and if it's obviously propaganda, then the news report identifies this site as a propaganda site. And there are other sites which are authoritative on ISIS, and that's what is quoted. So it's like what Donnie said about labeling the post, or Facebook, they also label the post as saying, go to this website for authentic information. So in terms of reporting on ISIS, we're very careful in identifying the sources, and we have to double check. So I think Donnie has also a lot of experience in Indonesia.
Yeah, Donnie?
Yeah, I can add a bit more. So for us at TikTok, there's no place for terrorism-related content or violent extremism. Not even the representation of this organization. So ISIS, for example, this is very clear. They're not allowed to set up a TikTok account, let alone even just the praise of them or representation by other users are also not allowed. Now we do have in-house experts, people who are have knowledge and experience in dealing with this type of content. We have legal experts, people, academia who have looked into the issue of terrorism and violent extremism. So they help to formulate our policies. And we also work with external organizations. And obviously, the challenge, I think, is on detecting these content, right? Because a lot of times it's not very clear where do they come from, and it's also very subtle. That's why we rely a lot on external experts as well. So in addition to the fact-checking experts, we also have counter-violent extremism or terrorism experts on our expert panel, including in our APAC Safety Advisory Council.
Well, thank you, Donnie. Lydia, you have the next questions.
Sure. So a lot of the discussion is focused on how to combat misinformation by educating the population, but a lot of the responses have looked at using universities. What about old folks? What channels do we have to reach older people who are also, potential victims of misinformation, disinformation? So that's to all of you.
Yeah, I could start. I think for TikTok, the reason why a lot of our focus is on the younger demographic is it's also because that's a reflection of our user base. A lot of our users are between the age of 14 and 25. But it is correct that misinformation affects everyone. So if these people, the older folks, if they do use TikTok and if they open our app, they will see these campaigns as well, the in-app campaigns that are directed to all of our users. So we have a campaign called Think Before You Do, for example, where our creators share tips on how to identify, the accurate information. So it's actually for everyone, not only for the younger folks.
Anything else? Lydia, you have another question from your side?
Sure. Do any of the panelists have questions they would like to address?
Yes. Can I address one question? Actually, two persons ask a similar question. What if this information comes from the state or something like? I was trying to answer it, but the example I gave in my earlier talk about Rappler tracking down pages and accounts of police, which shared this information and red tag people, is an example of a state as a source of this information. And nothing beats really hard work of documenting all these pages, all these accounts, finding out what they share and from whom do they get this information. So once Rappler was able to do this and got the side of Facebook, then Facebook started, of course, they've done also their own investigation, but they started to look into it again. And then after, I think, a month, they took down, as I said, 90 pages. This is not the first time. There would be other cases. So that's, I think, the most concrete example, because it's very difficult. For example, if I think somebody asked also a question about what if it's the head of state, the leaders of government. In the Philippines, we haven't yet reached the stage wherein the TV stations, what they did to Trump was they cut him off when he talked about fraudulent elections. We haven't reached that stage yet because Duterte's main way of talking to the public is through live broadcast or pre-recorded broadcast. So we're only able to fact check after he delivers his remarks.
Well, thank you, Marites. I think we must come to at the end of the discussion, and I will give all the panelists 1 minute each to give us some good recommendations that you think worthwhile to add to the all these creative measures to counter disinformation and fake news. Can I start with Donnie, and then Dr. Jiao and Marites. 1 minute each, please.
Thank you. So just to reiterate what has been shared by all panelists as well, it is all of our responsibility to basically ensure a safe and healthy and positive internet environment. From platform side, from TikTok side, we do our part in providing these policies and tools. We also are working with external experts. We are working with government and NGOs as well. And I would call upon you all as users of tech platforms to also actively play your part. Familiarize yourself with the tools that are available on tech platforms, how you can report content, for example, and how to keep yourself safe when you're using these tech platforms. In that way, you are also contributing to this endeavor. So yeah, let's all do our part. Thank you.
Thank you, Donnie. Dr. Jiao, please.
Thank you. Yes, for every government, the protecting the people is the top priority, and on cyberspace, it is more challenging now to keep our people safe and while having them, enabling them to make full use of the internet. So we welcome and we encourage all the stakeholders and particularly the media platforms to join the government effort in this effort and particularly in educating the people. So only the government, on the one hand, the resource is very limited, but on the other hand, we need to engage all the stakeholders and civil organizations to this work. So we continue to improve the legal and regulatory environment, and we will continue to work closely with all stakeholders. So once again, thank you, ERIA, for this initiative to have the public forum on this topic. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Marites, 1 minute.
Yeah, just a short point. I really am biased for media organizations, let's say in Southeast Asia, sharing our experiences on fact-checking, on sources of disinformation, because I think it's very possible and it's likely that we are tracking the same source of this information. So now I know that Donnie is in Jakarta. We can contact you, and colleagues in Malaysia as well, and in Vietnam. You know, it's always good to share and information so that we have a stronger and a more solid basis for reporting this information. And thank you so much. I enjoyed this panel.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. My strong takeaway is that we have to strengthen regional cooperation in dissemination of information, the right information. I think this is very important. My second takeaway is the building from Marites' issue that we have to be, what do you call, creative and more active in educative measures. I use the word educative measure because there are various ways to increase understanding and awareness for the content creator, the organizations, and the way they disseminate the information. So I think selecting the right informations, locating, verify information, as we all have mentioned, all these must be put into practice. That's my just a brief conclusion. There will be a much more longer report from ERIA later on. Well, thank you very much. We have a very rich discussion. I hope that we have longer time because this is a very important issue. And I'm sure we will see each other again and take up this issue because it's very involving topic. Back to you, Lydia. You have the last word.
Okay, my last word is a big thank you to you, Kavi, and to the panelists for a very lively discussion and for doing such a great job trying to answer so many questions. And thank you to our participants today for posing so many great questions. And I'm sorry to anyone who posed a question that we weren't able to get to. In the next couple of weeks, we will email the link for the longer report, and the video should be going up today. Please contact any of us if you're from the media and would like further information. Thank you all.
Thank
Bye.
you. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, Dr. Theo.